Rain slammed relentlessly against the tall windows of their city apartment. Rebecca sat rigid on the black leather sofa, one leg folded neatly over the other, her face unreadable, cold, deliberate. David had just walked in from what she assumed was yet another long evening at the architecture firm. He tugged at his loosened tie, fatigue etched into his shoulders, but the stiffness in her posture stopped him mid-step. "We need to talk," she said evenly, her tone stripped of warmth. David gave a slow nod and placed his briefcase near the door. 7 years of marriage had sharpened his instincts, and the air tonight felt sharp, charged, even threatening. Rebecca leaned forward, her dark gaze locked on his, searching for the reaction she wanted, almost demanding it. "I slept with someone last night." The sentence fell between them like a blade suspended in midair. She braced herself for what she expected next: shouting, tears, fury, questions, begging. None of it came. Instead, David reached toward the side table, picked up the bottle of whiskey, and poured himself a modest glass. He raised it to his lips and drank slowly, never breaking eye contact. "Congratulations," he said softly. The composure Rebecca had carefully maintained shattered. This was not how it was supposed to go. In her mind, he was meant to fall apart. She wanted to see him unravel, to feel powerful again after months of emotional distance. She expected desperation, questions about the man, demands for answers, a fight for her. But David remained calm, almost disturbingly so. "That's it," she snapped, irritation bleeding into her voice. "That's all you're going to say?" He rotated the glass in his hand, watching the amber liquid move. "What would you like me to say, Rebecca?" he replied quietly. "You already decided." She sprang to her feet, fingers trembling, not from remorse, but from fury. "So you don't care? After 7 years together, you just don't care?" David's jaw clenched, yet he stayed silent. Beneath his still exterior, everything inside him was collapsing. A storm raged in his chest, but his face showed nothing. Because the reality was this: he had known for 5 days. The hotel receipt she'd absent-mindedly left inside her coat pocket. The late-night messages lighting up her phone at 2 in the morning. The unfamiliar perfume clinging to her skin when she slipped into bed, assuming he was already asleep. He had cared. More than she could ever understand. But caring had stopped being enough. 5 days earlier, David had been organizing the hallway closet when Rebecca's winter coat slipped off its hanger. As he lifted it, a folded slip of paper slid onto the wooden floor. The Grand Meridian Hotel. Room 847. 1 night. 2 occupants. His hands went numb as he stared at the date, last Tuesday. The same evening she'd claimed she had a work-related dinner event. He remembered kissing her goodbye, telling her to enjoy herself. She had smiled and said she'd be home late. That night, after Rebecca had fallen asleep, David waited until her breathing slowed into steady rhythm. His pulse raced as he gently lifted her phone from the nightstand. He knew the code: it was their anniversary date. The truth spilled out instantly. Months of messages. Playful banter that turned graphic. Explicit plans. Photos she had sent to someone listed as J. Images David had never seen before, expressions and poses she had never shared with him. The conversations told the whole story. The excitement of secrecy. Complaints about her dull marriage. Promises to leave David once the timing felt right. But what broke him completely was reading how she described the last time she'd been intimate with him. She told this stranger she had closed her eyes and pictured someone else. That David no longer stirred anything inside her. That she was simply enduring the marriage until she could get out. David sat in the darkness beside her sleeping body and felt something within him shut down. Not his love, that would take time to bury, but his desire to fight for someone who already viewed him as disposable. By morning, his path was clear. He would not confront her. He would not give her the satisfaction of watching him crumble. Instead, he contacted a ruthless divorce attorney recommended by a colleague. He began gathering proof, screenshots, receipts, statements. He even discreetly spoke with hotel staff. Then he waited. Over the next 5 days, David became a shadow in his own life. He maintained routines. Shared breakfast. Made small talk. Even slept with Rebecca when she initiated, though it felt like a betrayal of himself. All the while, he was assembling his escape. His lawyer, Patricia Hendris, was precise and unforgiving. "With what you've collected, the outcome will favor you," she told him during their second meeting. Infidelity alone doesn't always matter in New York, but documented misuse of shared finances does. That was when David realized Rebecca had been funding her affair with their joint credit card. Upscale restaurants, hotel stays, gifts. She tried to be discreet, but not enough. Each transaction became another nail sealing the end of their marriage. On Wednesday night, Rebecca dressed carefully, claiming she was going out for drinks with her sister. David kissed her goodbye and told her he loved her, the words hollow in his mouth. After she left, he hired a private investigator. The photographs arrived the following morning. Rebecca with a man David didn't know, fit, younger, inked, entering a boutique hotel in Brooklyn. Some images captured them through thin curtains, bodies pressed together in a way that made David's stomach twist. Yet instead of anger, he felt something else. Clarity. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a deliberate, repeated decision she made while coming home to him and pretending everything was normal. By Friday afternoon, David met with a real estate agent. Though the apartment was jointly owned, he was the primary income holder. He began touring smaller places, quiet, uncomplicated spaces where he could start over. That evening, Rebecca was unusually warm. Perhaps she sensed the distance growing between them. She cooked his favorite dinner, wore the dress he once loved most. She initiated intimacy with an intensity that had been missing for months. And David went along with it, already gone in every way that mattered. David responded to her advances, even though his mind was already detached, operating with cold precision. When it was over and she lay beside him, relaxed, content, drifting toward sleep, he stared upward at the ceiling and felt absolutely nothing. By Saturday, the paperwork was complete. He had signed the divorce documents. So now, as Rebecca stood in front of him, demanding some dramatic response to her revelation, David felt unexpectedly calm. The emotional storm had already torn through him days ago. What remained was simply dealing with the aftermath. "Why are you acting like this?" Rebecca asked, her voice faltering as confusion cracked through her anger. "You're supposed to be upset." "I am," David replied evenly as he set his glass aside. "I've been upset for 5 days, since I found the hotel receipt. Since I read your messages with Jay. Since I saw the pictures of you together in Brooklyn last Wednesday." Her face drained of color. "Oh, you knew?" "Of course I did." He rose slowly and walked past her toward the bedroom. "You were never nearly as discreet as you believed." "David, wait." She grabbed his arm, panic replacing the confidence she'd shown earlier. "Let me explain. It's not what it looks like. It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything." He gently freed himself from her grip. "It meant something to me." Inside the bedroom, David opened the nightstand drawer and took out a thick manila envelope, the one he'd prepared for this exact moment. When he returned to the living room, Rebecca was pacing, her carefully planned confession unraveling by the second. "What's that?" she asked quietly. He extended the envelope toward her. "Open it." Her hands shook as she obeyed. The divorce paperwork sat neatly on top, already bearing his signature. Beneath it were printed screenshots of her conversations, hotel invoices, highlighted credit card statements, and the investigator's photographs. Then she reached the final document. A signed lease for a new apartment, his name only, effective next week. "You're leaving," she whispered, the truth finally sinking in. "I already did," David said calmly. "I just hadn't physically moved yet." "But I was supposed to," she trailed off. "Supposed to what?" he asked. "Break me? Control the situation? Watch me beg?" His voice stayed level, but his eyes revealed the pain he refused to voice. "You wanted leverage, Rebecca. You wanted power. You wanted to see me fall apart. I'm not giving you that." She dropped onto the couch, the contents of the envelope spilling across her lap. "David, please," she pleaded. "We can fix this. I'll end it with him. I swear. I was confused. Things got boring and I..." And instead of talking to me, you chose betrayal, David said, finishing her thought. You chose to vent to a stranger while I was right here, willing to fight for us. She looked up at him, tears pouring down her face now, whether from regret or the loss of control, he couldn't tell. I love you, she said desperately. I made a horrible mistake, but I love you. David reached into his pocket and removed his wedding band. He paused for a moment, remembering the day she slid it onto his finger, the vows they made. Then he placed it gently on the coffee table between them. I loved you too, he said quietly. Past tense. Don't do this, Rebecca begged, reaching for him. Give me a chance to fix it. I can change. For a brief moment, David almost faltered. 7 years of memories surged forward, their first date at the Italian place downtown, their rainy wedding day, slow Sunday mornings, private jokes no one else understood. Then he remembered the screenshots. Her words. The lies. The deliberate deception. You'll need to sign the papers, he said, pulling his hand away. My lawyer will contact you about dividing everything. The apartment's paid through next month. You have time to figure out your next steps. Where are you going? That's no longer your concern. He walked to the door and picked up the overnight bag he'd packed earlier and hidden in the hall closet. I'll have movers collect the rest of my belongings next week. Keep whatever you want. David, she cried, desperation raw in her voice. You can't just leave me like this. He paused with his hand on the door handle. Yes, I can. You ended this marriage the moment you chose someone else. I'm only finalizing what you started. What about us? She sobbed. What about everything we built? David turned and looked at her one last time. She appeared smaller somehow, reduced, sitting among the proof of her own choices. You destroyed what we built, he said. I'm just stepping away from what's left. I'm sorry, she whispered. Whether she was sorry for the betrayal or sorry she'd been exposed, David would never know. So am I, he replied, and meant it. As the door closed behind him, he heard her crying. He stood in the hallway for a moment, the weight of 7 years pressing down on him. But beneath the sorrow was something else. Relief. He walked to the elevator and pressed the button. When the doors opened, he stepped inside and watched their apartment shrink from view as he descended. With every floor, the heaviness loosened. By the time he reached the lobby, David took his first full breath in 5 days. Outside, the rain had ended. The streets gleamed under city lights, clean and reflective. He pulled out his phone and typed a new message to his attorney. She has the documents. Let's move forward. Then he deleted Rebecca's contact, blocked her number, and started walking, alone, but intact, toward his future. She'd intended to break him with her confession. Instead, she had undone herself. David had already let go before she even realized he was leaving. Sometimes the strongest response to betrayal isn't anger, it's silence. And sometimes walking away says more than any argument ever could. The chapter she tried to destroy was already finished. The next one was just beginning.